I'm a big fan of thin and slim cases, and I've used Apple cases for years, which have left me with mixed opinions. Apple cases have never offered much drop protection, but they're great in the sleek department. I've been rotating these three cases out on my iPhone 12 Pro Max for the past couple of months, and I want to compare them for you guys. With that, let's get into it. We'll start with the Apple Clear case with MagSafe. This case retails for $49, so it's more on the expensive side of phone cases. The packaging is simple and plain with no big claims made on the cover like drop protection or warranty guarantee. Thankfully, it does include a diagram, or else my dumbass wouldn't have known how to put it on. There is a cool little MagSafe animation when you put the case on. It's pretty easy to get on and off the phone, and it's not like an OtterBox symmetry where it feels like you're going to break the phone when you put it on, and especially when you take it off. It is a very thin and slim case, and it feels great in the hand, though it is a bit slippery. It's raised above the screen so you can lay the phone face down and the screen won't be touching the surface. It's also raised above the camera bump so the lenses won't touch the surface when it's laid face up. The wobbling from the camera bump is nearly eliminated, but if you press on the top left corner, the phone still wobbles a bit. It also keeps the cutout at the bottom of the case, like all the previous Apple cases. This does make swiping up to go home easier, but leaves the bottom of the phone exposed, which I'm not a fan of. To be fair, the previous iPhones that I've had an Apple case on didn't seem to get any scratches on the exposed bottom, but I still would like the bottom to be covered and have that peace of mind. The buttons aren't very clicky compared to the other two Apple cases. They take more effort to press than I prefer, but they're not the mushiest I've ever used. I've read reviews where people claim this case is terrible because of how mushy the buttons are, but in my opinion, it's not bad enough to make it a terrible case by any means. There are a lot mushier buttons out there that I've used. I mentioned it is a little slippery, but it was very slippery when it was fresh out of the box, like almost unusable. After a few days, I noticed it wasn't sliding around my hand as much, so I think this is probably because the oil's in my hand, but I'm not sure. Now, for the specs. With the clear case on, the iPhone weighs 272 grams, is 10.8 millimeters thick, 81.7 millimeters wide, and 164.3 millimeters long. So it's only adding 44 grams to the iPhone's weight, 3.4 millimeters to its thickness, and 3.6 millimeters to its width. The height isn't a big deal since you never hold the phone horizontally and one-handed, so this is about as slim as a case you can get without it offering no protection whatsoever. Normally, clear cases either scratch horribly or start yellowing. After several months, remarkably, this case has yet to do either. Somehow, there are no noticeable scratches on this thing. I haven't used it every day since the 12 Pro Max released, but I've used it as long as I've used other clear cases in the past that have turned yellow. So this one does a good job. This is a high quality case, but I do think the $49 price tag is about $10 to $15 too high. If it were $10 cheaper, it would be an excellent value, but it is still a good value since the quality is on point. Overall, I really like this case, but the slipperiness and the mushy buttons keep it from being the best case Apple has to offer. The clear is a nice change when you want to see the color of the phone though. Next, we have the Apple leather case with MagSafe in the California poppy color. This case retails for $59. The packaging is very similar to the clear case, except it's easier to open and shut, and it claims the case is made from natural leather. Apple assumes we're smart enough to put a case on since the diagram on the back is Nope, never mind. We're all still too stupid to put on a case without instructions apparently. The MagSafe animation changes color depending on the color of the case. It's pointless, but the phone knowing what color case is applied is really cool. The case is easy to get on and off. It's a little easier than the clear case. The leather case is just as slim and thin as the clear case, but has much better grip. It still has a bit of slipperiness, but not nearly as bad as the clear case, or even as bad as some of the other Apple leather cases I've used in the past. New to the leather cases this year is coverage around the entire trim of the phone. Yes, even the bottom. Just like the clear case, this one is raised above the screen and the camera bump, and it seems to offer the same amount of protection. So Not much. In the past, the buttons on the Apple leather cases have been the best buttons out of all cases I've ever used. The case for the 12 Pro Max keeps that trend going. They are metal and they are very clicky. The experience of pressing these buttons is my favorite out of all the cases I've used on this phone so far. They are fantastic. I never inadvertently press a button, and it doesn't double click a button when you only press it once like some mushy buttons tend to do. They're the best buttons out of all 3 Apple cases. The quality of this case is good, but not great. Not $59 good. I'm sure you could see the finish coming off around the sides when looking at the screen and the peeling going on at the top. It's also looking a little rough on the bottom by the charger and the speaker cutouts. There were blotches on the case that looked like they came from jeans, so before shooting this video I cleaned it with an alcohol wipe and it got rid of the spots, but the cloth was yellow when I finished, so it seems to be like it's taken some of the finish off. With all of these cases, I'm primarily charging the phone with a MagSafe charger, probably about 90% of the time. The page for the leather case on Apple's site says interaction with MagSafe accessories will leave slight imprints, but mine doesn't seem to have any imprints even after having a MagSafe charger attached to it more times than I can count. If I move the case under a light, I feel like you can see a hint of the ring around the Apple logo, but it is so faint that you wouldn't notice it unless you're really looking for it. Now to the specs. With the leather case on, the iPhone weighs 269 grams, is 10.5 millimeters thick, 81.7 millimeters wide, and 164.7 millimeters long. It adds 41 grams to the iPhone's weight, 3.1 millimeters to its thickness, and 3.6 millimeters to its width. The specs are almost identical to the clear case, besides the leather weighing 3 fewer grams and being 0.3 millimeters thinner. Even with the steep $59 price tag, this case was my favorite Apple case. That was up until the finish started coming off and the peeling started happening around the top. When looking at the screen, the trim now just looks crappy. Once it starts deteriorating, it loses the premium look that Apple is going for. And I know it's supposed to develop a natural patina over time, but this just looks bad. I'm nitpicking, I know. And you get to do that when you spend $59 on a case offering hardly any protection compared to the other cases at this price point. This is my favorite color case out of them all so far, and it looks great paired with the Pacific Blue camera bump. Thanks to the fantastic buttons, the leather feeling, and the color, I would take this case over the clear case and its slipperiness and its mushy buttons. That's only if price isn't a factor. The value of this case isn't great, in my opinion. $59 is overpriced for a case that starts looking rough after only a couple months. If it maintained that premium look for a longer period of time, I would gladly pay $59 for this case. But it's Apple and they can charge a higher price. Finally, we have the Apple Silicone Case with MagSafe in the plum color. Like the clear case, this one is expensive and retails for $49. The packaging is identical to the clear cases, except the stupid diagram is on the inside like it is with the leather packaging. Like the leather case, there's a MagSafe animation when it's applied, except in this case, it's plum colored. The case seems to be as easy to get on and off as the leather, maybe even a little easier. It feels just as slim and the same weight as the other 2 cases in hand, except this is by far the grippiest case out of them all. It has a silky feeling and hardly slides around in your hand. Like the leather case, Apple finally made the case go around all sides of the phone, even the bottom. And guess what? It's just as easy to swipe up from the bottom as it is on the cases that had the bottom cut out. Why didn't you do this sooner, Apple? Like the other 2 cases, it's raised above the screen and the camera bump. The buttons on this case are great. They aren't quite as clicky as the leather case's buttons, but much better than the clear case's buttons. These have a very minimal amount of mush to the point where it's almost non-existent. Surprisingly, this is the best quality case out of all 3, in my opinion. In years past, the silicone quality has been trash. The finish would rub off and it would get shiny looking, and mine all seemed to tear in the corner and would chip near the bottom edges. But this time, Apple nailed it. Using a MagSafe charger on this case leaves no imprint. Sometimes there will be a smudge looking ring around the logo, but it rubs away with your thumb or just a cloth. Now, the specs. With the silicone case on, the iPhone weighs 273 grams, is 10.5 millimeters thick, 81.7 millimeters wide, and 164.4 millimeters long. It adds 45 grams to the iPhone's weight, 1 gram more than the clear case, and making it the heaviest out of all three. It adds 3.1 millimeters to the phone's thickness and 3.6 millimeters to its width. Once the leather case started having its issues, this case took its spot as my favorite Apple case. Its grippiness, the great buttons, and so far its durability put it as the best overall Apple case this iPhone cycle. Now, if they only would have kept it as the same $39 price point as previous silicone cases, it would be a somewhat good value. At $49, it's still too high to be a good value for a case made out of silicone. There are a lot more protective cases out there with great warranties that are quite a bit cheaper. None of these cases, I would say, are bad cases. The leather is probably the worst value out of them all, but if you can find it discounted, it's not a bad deal. The clear case is the best clear case I've used on a phone in a long time, maybe ever. I like it a lot. And the silicone, this cycle, was the best silicone case they've came out with yet. Before the $10 price jump, I thought these cases were still at least a little overpriced, but $49 on the low end, oof. It's getting harder to justify them. I guess now we know it cost us $10 for Apple to add the bottom to their cases. With all that said, these are my 3 favorite cases for my iPhone 12 Pro Max yet, regardless of the price. And yes, I've used other cases than these 3. I'm working on the videos and I will post those soon. If price doesn't affect you, any of these cases are a good buy. Otherwise, find whichever Apple case you want on sale somewhere and don't pay full price. None of them are a good value at retail price. Thanks for watching. If you liked any part of this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you'd like to see other iPhone case reviews. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see anything added to these reviews and if there are any cases you'd like me to review. Until next time.